So we're going to start on Chapter 6, Displaying and Annotating Alignments, which is a follow-up chapter after Chapter 5 when we learn about designing and using alignments and their geometry and various other things. We are going to talk about displaying and annotating them, which is kind of the second half of what we're going to be doing with alignments. The first half, we learn how to use them in a way graphically, edit them, what they're made of. And the second part here, we're going to learn a lot more creating the design is only half the battle. We're going to address the graphical appearance, the styles of them, how to annotate them, how to give information so people, reviewers or contractors or various people can build and use and interpret these set alignments. And the same with Chapter 7, we're going to learn how to graphically use and display profiles. But then after that, we're going to learn how to deeper edit their symbology, how they appear, and their Civil 3D styles, and also how to annotate and manipulate them graphically to display them with the information we want. So with that being said, we have our files here in Chapter 6, and we will begin by looking at them. We have 16 files, 8 of them complete, 8 are not. So as before, I recommend going from one to the next. It's just easier that way. You'll have a better, more clean experience. If you want to challenge yourself, try going from one to the next continuously, but I wouldn't recommend that in various reasons. For some of these drawings, the next one up has different styles in it, for example, in Civil 3D styles. So you might not find the same styles from one drawing to the next. So I recommend just following the book's order on that. And if you need to check your complete files afterwards and just compare what you did with what the book recommends. So with that being said, let's jump into the book on page 113, and there's 3 things we're going to learn about. We're going to learn about the alignment styles, what makes them appear the way they do, and also what to do about that, how to label them and their labels and their label sets and groups. They're a little different than other labels we've learned so far, that they can come in label sets, aka groups. We're going to learn about some different types of labels. This is the third part in 3 different areas, station offset labels being one of them. There's other ones as well. We're going to learn about segment labels, the actual geometry of the alignments, and then converting those said labels into tags and tables. So with that being said, let's jump into page 114 and dive into this chapter, learning about alignment styles. So open your first drawing, alignment styles, which I have in 2022 here. I have most of mine in order, just to keep this flowing. Alignment styles. I'm using Civil 3D 2022 once again to kind of let this class, we use this brand of software for the next several years, which has very similar things to the text in 2016, especially as we move forward into this book. So let's start by zooming into the alignment representing the center line of Emerson Road, and I'm going to click it. I'm going to right click, and then we're going to go to alignment properties, or you could go here to change things as well. Once my alignment's selected, you can see my selection set. I have one alignment selected. That's another way. Or you can start accessing things once again as you select your alignment contextual prompt with blue saying also the name of the alignment shows up. Your options to pick said alignment are up here. The properties of it, the style of it, how it looks, its geometry, deeper design edits, super elevation stuff we're not learning yet. These are deeper analysis tools. Labeling and stuff is over here. We're going to be in this area a lot today. When we select an alignment, that's the contextual prompt area we're going to go to. Another reminder is that you can get to these in the file tree alignments. This is very critical. Just keep drilling this in. They populate here. We have a bunch of different types of alignments. Centerline alignments are generally the center lines of roads. So alignments are, as we learned in Chapter 5, the backbone and baseline for what many things are designed off of. They're their home base, the baseline. And these are generally center lines of road or pipes or rails or various things. Rails could be here, but could be a lot of things. And they populate down here. So here's Emerson Road. We can also select it this way, which I already had selected. You can access a lot of these same commands by right-clicking it and going to properties here as well. Similar commands, when you click it and right-click, you can go to properties, edit alignment style, edit alignment geometry, edit alignment labels. Very similar to all these. They're the same thing. Property style, geometry, our labeling over here. So there's 3 to 4 ways to get to these things. I'm just trying to drill that in. And we have more alignments in here. We have offset ones, which are interconnected to our centerline ones. Offset alignments move dynamically with the centerline one. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, as I hold control and click them, associated with Jordan Court. Some with edge of asphalt 12 feet off, and some with edge of right-of-way 30 feet off, left and right. Madison Lane has 2 of them. They move together. And we have some curb return alignments. So these, if we right-click and zoom to, they're right here. So these are curb return alignments. They're where the curb of the asphalt and curb meets. So these we won't mess too much with, but they're special for doing intersections at a later time, which is beyond the scope of this book. But these are different types of alignments as well. They generally are where the roads connect with other roads, like we have here with Madison Lane and Jordan Court. So just a quick explanation of where these are. This is going to get critical in the next few chapters as we see things really populate under the alignment file tree. And a lot of them will be centerline alignments, and a lot of things later on we learn will be in here. Elevation, super elevation views, profiles, profile views, sample lines, which later section views come under, all populate slowly under alignments here. So this is a big one to really drill in. Later on, we'll have other file trees for corridors and assemblies, pipe networks. But for now, these ones are going to be critical to learn. Similar to how you had surfaces. You had your surface populate up here in its definitions, so, and as well as points from our previous chapters. So just get familiar with that. With that being said, let's continue on to the chapter on 115, the exercises at hand. And I'm going to pick the center line of Emerson Road. And I'm going to right click and go to properties in this case, the way they wanted it. I'm going to change its Civil 3D, alignment style to C Road Center E. Hit OK. Changes its symbology. If I go back to this, I right click and go to edit alignment style, or here. Let's see what makes up that style just a little bit briefly. Here's the style that we selected. It has different design stuff to it, markers turned on and off. This is the main one. What's displayed on and off, what layer, color, line weight. It's dictated by layer, which is good in this case. You can do it in the plan view, which is what we're in, model view, which is a 3D view, or also a section view, which is something we'll learn later in this book, the cut sections into our view. But now we're just dealing with plans. So this is where the symbology comes from. We'll hit cancel. And I'm going to do the same thing with Jordan Court. I'm going to hit escape, grab the center line of Jordan Court. I'm going to go up here this time just to show you different ways. Go to alignment properties here, or you can just click this icon here. I always hover over things so you can see what it says if you don't know. We're going to change this one to just C Road Center. The last one was C Road Center E, which probably means existing. So just different ways to name things cleverly. It changes it. And let's go down south. Take a look at this Jordan Court. And we're going to change it once again. So look at how it is now. We have our PI out here. We have our different grips. And remember when I was talking about those offset alignments? See how they move dynamically? There's 4 offset alignments with Jordan Court. There's the 12-foot ones in the middle there, and there's the 30-foot ones. They're designed to move dynamically with the center line alignment. So there's some dynamicness and interconnectability with Civil 3D in that way. So that was just showing you graphically what I explained here between the alignments, how they're interrelated. We have all 4 of these for Jordan Court that I just moved. They're all connected to the center line one. Anyway, I'm going to pick this Jordan Court alignment again in your book on step 5. I'm going to right click. I'm going a different direction this time. I'm just trying to get you used to both 2 or 3 ways. Go to alignment properties. I'm going to change that Civil 3D object style of the alignment to something else. C Road Center with markers. I'm going to hit OK. It adds some different annotations. It's now showing the extensions to the point of intersection, the PI. Here's your PC, point of curvature. That's where the curve starts. Here's where the curve ends, the point of tangency, returns to tangency, aka straight line. And it has different note markers showing. So it has slightly different symbology. Very similar though. Red phantom line, but these areas on the curve look different. So I'm just showing you the power of different styles basically. That's what we got going on here. Let's pan south to Madison Lane, and this one we're just going to right click and we'll go to properties. we'll change this one to the layout, Civil 3D alignment style. Okay, that one's different yet. So the Madison lane also has some offset alignments. See, two of them, these white ones. So if I move Madison lane with this radius grip, for example, let's make it a bigger radius to the north. My offset alignments move with it. You can see to the right there. Pretty cool. Definitely huge on design to get alignments set up well before you start designing things further from them. They're the backbone a lot of times of this stuff. So last thing, we're going to go to on this page on 115, we're going to pick the outside alignments of Jordan Court. Let's pick them. And let's go up here to the ribbon this time. Just going back and forth. We'll say alignment properties. Style will be editing its style, how it looks. We're not doing much of that in this book, but I showed you a little bit about it, how to do it. It doesn't, so I had two of them selected. It's saying you got to select one alignment. It's not letting me do both at the same time, so that's something to keep in mind. I only can select one. I always keep in mind what your command bar is saying if it throws something at you don't know. And a lot of times it's telling you what to do, just like Revit does. So I can only do one at a time. It wants me to change it to C road R way, aka right away. Hit OK. Change the symbology. I could have had them both selected. Here's a way to do multiple at once. I have both selected. I also can change them here, right? So I have my style here. It says varies because they are two different ones, and that's fair. That's what it should say. I can change them both here at one swoop. I can do the same with these ones. And we are going to do that right now, actually. Let's pick a bunch of them. We pick a bunch of these alignments. These are edge of pavement alignments, essentially dynamic alignments with a certain symbology. It's easier to do design like this a lot of times than drawing static 2D polylines and lines because they all move together when designs change in geometry. There's a lot of advantage to this. So like I said, I have 6 of them selected. See your selection set there in the properties. Another reason I like to have this always open. And I can change the style at once right here to C Road Edge, which is on page 116. It wants you to do that. Changes the symbology to blue. And that's it for that part. We're going to move on to the next area, file, alignment labels, on 116. And we're going to talk about 3 different types of labels to start off. Those are being major station labels, minor station labels, and geometry point labels. Now, what does that mean? So alignments, as in profiles as well, they have special different types of annotation that could be applied along the entire alignment or profile, or at a specific set of ranges, range of stations along it. It also has repeating annotation along certain increments. That's where these major station and minor station labels come in. They come in at very exact increments of your choosing. And now they also can have things like geometry points, where critical points of geometry are, for example, like where this PT is, or this PC and where this PT is. They'll put different labels there, or this center, or this point. Well, this would be more of a point of reverse curvature because it's a curve coming in and then flips the curve to the other direction, like we learned in Chapter 5 a little bit about a point of compound curve and a point of reverse curve. They're very common 3D editing geometries, but the biggest thing is in almost any land surveying and civil engineering application, we try to keep things tangent as much as possible so they can be easily reproduced and staked and constructed in the field. So that means a 90-degree angle from here to here to its radius to its center of this curve. When it hits this tangency, it's 90 degrees. So it's tangent to the line. The curve and the line are tangent to each other. So that's very common, but we're going to have horizontal geometry labels for those. That's what these are talking about. So they come in groups. So they're a little different in the way that when the alignment changes, all these alignments and label sets, these alignment labels and label sets act together. And you'll see what that means in a second here. So with that being said, we're going to click on the Jordan Court alignment again. And we're going to go this method to, we're going to get used to this up here, add labels, add and edit station labels. And other various ways to get to this we'll show in a second. And we're going to start with major stationing. We're going to go to parallel with tick, we'll say add, and we're going to change this increment to 50 feet. for the major stationing. We're going to go to minor stations, select that, and then we're going to say tick only, which is what we want. There's another style in here someone may, but we'll just take the one the book recommends in this. So add, and we're going to go to geometry points, and this one's slightly different. Well, actually, before we go there, let's change our minor stations to 10 in an increment of 10. Let's just see what that looks like first. Let's hit apply. You can see what happened there. So apply applies the changes, but it doesn't take me out of the dialog box like OK does. So you can see that major stations added every 50 feet and minor stations of the label style tick only filled in the in-between gaps. But these had a Civil 3D style called parallel with tick. See, they run these text pieces of dynamic Civil 3D text run parallel with the alignment, even along the curves they do. Okay, so let's add one more, and let's pick geometry points, and let's go ahead and keep perpendicular with tick and line and say add. It wants you to just select 3 of them here, reverse curve, and we can turn off alignment end and beginning. Just follow my lead on this one. If you don't get them all, I prefer just to turn them all on to make this step quicker. Instead of just selecting minor ones, I'll hit OK. It'll go to all the spots. But for example, we didn't want the midpoints, so that's fine. This is a time to teach you something else. I turned off the beginning and the end label, which there's no label there. That's great. But this will be one thing. If you did exactly as the book said, these ones wouldn't have shown up. But if you hit Control, hold Control, and left click, you can click one label at a time. And you can also stack your selection set and add more if you hold Control and keep left clicking. I'm going to delete all these midpoint labels. This is just a good lesson to learn. I'll hit delete. Same if you click just one of them. See how these label sets interact? They're dynamic. So it's alignment, geometry, point label group. A lot of words there. Alignment, geometry, point label group. So this group interacts together. If I select one of them, they all select. Same with the major station labels. If I don't hold Control, the whole group selects. So they're dynamic and they're like a big chain. Same with the minor ticks. They all participate together. So they're a little more to these type of labels as they work together. If you want to select one once again, you hold Control, pick it, and you can do various things which we'll learn later. Just move one individual label compared to the next. And they're all dynamic as the alignment moves. So that's critical to know. We're going to learn about saving all this stuff I just did at once. I'm clicking it right now in the geometry labels. How do we label all these things at once in one step, let's say? Glad you asked, because that's what exercise 6.3 is all about. We're going to save this label set as a group to do at once. So let's go to the third file, alignment label sets. Okay, and let's click the Jordan Court alignment again, and let's go to our annotation tab here, and we're going to go to add labels, add and edit station labels. Okay, and we have them all populated, the ones we just did. We just literally did these. We did them along the whole station of the alignment from start to end. You don't have to do that. You can specify, but we generally do this. And we're going to say save label set. Okay? And we're going to call it something a little long-handed. I'll pause it and type it out right now. So this is what I called it. M50 stations and M10 ticks and geometry points. So major at 50 is what that dictates. Minor at 10 with the shorthand. Kind of clever how they did that. Ticks only. And geometry points. So we're going to say OK to this. And we're going to hit OK again. And we're going to hit escape to clear our selection of Jordan Court. Let's apply this label set we just made to. It wants us to apply it to, looks like Madison Lane. So to do that, let's just click Madison Lane, go here, add labels, add edit station labels, or we could also have it clicked, right click, and say edit alignment labels. That's the second way to get to this. Same as up here. The book was telling you this method and contextual ribbon. Both work. Now it's blank because we don't have anything labeled in these label sets. Well, we just saved one. So we're going to import that one we just made. And here it is. There it is saved. We have a bunch of other ones too. These are kind of default from the box, Civil 3D ones. Most of them are a good starting point if you have no styles built out. We'll hit OK. It does it all in one. Boom. So that's label sets. And we'll move to 6.4 on page 120, which we're going to start talking about editing alignment labels. So as you've seen so far, alignment labels, which we'll later find out about profile labels, are a little bit different than other type of labels because they are grouped together. They're linked together in label sets. So when you click one of them, all of them are selected, as we just saw me doing, and the entire alignment for the distance you did. You can learn about flipping them back and forth, reversing certain labels, depending if that's option or not, which we'll find out with bearing labels in a minute. You can edit custom text inside of them. They're very dynamic. And one of the key things too, and we'll start on exercise 6.4 in a minute, get your editing alignment labels drawing ready. One of the other things the book doesn't really cover is they do, but you can see how they're dynamic. So when I change this, they move with everything else. These are probably locked. There's only so many directions you can go because they're constrained. So these labels, the stations, change on the major, minor, and the geometry labels. Let me hit Control Z, or you can also do undo here. You got to go back several commands because AutoCAD in its infinite wisdom loves to populate commands every time you pan or zoom, which is usually 80% of your commands. But anyway, also with these labels, you can go inside of them, edit the properties, customize their text, flip them back and forth. As the book was saying, you can also reset the whole group to a default setting. So I have one of them picked. Let me try that again. If I pick one, see the whole group is selected. If I hold Control and left click, I can only select one, which sometimes you only want to edit one at a time. You have your grip here, square grip, to do it in straight state, like this. If I hit reset label group, my contextual prompt says my alignment geometry point label group is still selected, okay, because it's blue. I can reset everything again. I can also flip it up here. I can edit the label text. I can edit this whole group. I go back to this again since it's already made. Delete things out of it. Add more things to it. Design speeds, super elevation, critical points. That's a little more deep than we're learning, but you can add things as you go. They're very intensive in what you can customize. So another thing I was going to talk about quick, and this is pretty critical. The book doesn't cover it much. It's pretty critical as you're setting up your sheets and your layout tabs, which these are blank. But as you're setting up your viewports to certain scales, right? Let me hit regenerate, REA. Let's just do this quickly. And let's say that I'm in this viewport. Let's put it at, here's your scale here on your toolbar gizmos and stuff. I'm going to say 1 to 40 scale. And it should have regenerated automatically. Here's what it would look like if I plotted. I don't have a title block and fancy stuff here, but these will update if I go to 1 to 80 scale. They're going to shrink to half that size. Or not shrink to half that size. They remain the same size, but my alignments stay the same. So the scale of the text remains the same. So let me zoom in to 1 to 20. Text remains the same, but I'm more zoomed in. So they're dynamic like that. That's pretty awesome. Same goes if you go to model space in your global area, your whole drawing here. If I change my scale in my model space, this can be helpful when you want to just scale them down so you can see things. Turn 1 to 10 scale. I'll go to 1 to 40. I think that's where they were. They were at 1 to 30. If you keep going up, they keep getting bigger and harder to manipulate things. So let's go down to 1 to 20 just for fun. Show you how they got smaller. So that can make it more usable. That won't be reflected in this viewport. So say this viewport, this stays the same. This is 1 to 20 no matter what I do. I'm going to lock it right here. I'm going to lock the viewport. That means I can't zoom in and out, pan around. But if I unlock it, I totally can, by accident even. Zoom in and out with my roll mouse or side to side. Let's go back to 1 to 20, and let's lock it. So that's just lessons about viewports, how they interact with model space, and the dynamic annotative scale of Civil 3D text is very powerful. AutoCAD annotative styles are just as good, but they're much clunkier to use. These generally work a bit better, the Civil 3D styles in the text and all the labels we're learning how to use. Once the styles are set up the way you want, they generally work pretty well. The harder part is getting the styles perfected and to the appearance and size and display characteristics and movements that you want. That's the harder part, and more of a job for a senior level designer to get these looking exactly the way they want, or a CAD manager, or someone who's really integrated into Civil 3D. Anyway, let's move on to 6.4, and I'm going to go to editing alignment labels. Make sure you're in this drawing, editing alignment labels, and we're going to grab the entire group. So let's see the power of what we just explained. I'm going to grab one of these labels of this joint court. I got to look at this contextual ribbon to say it right. Alignment, geometry point label group. These would be alignment station label groups. So different label groups. This one is different than that one, but I have two of them selected. Different types of label groups. You can see how they're distinguished in different text. Here, I grab a third one, the minors. I've got three of them. They're all slightly different name. Minor, full stations, geometry points. We're going to select one of the groups here and get them all. And we're going to say edit alignment or edit label group. This is one way. You can also go to it by doing this, edit alignment labels, and it wants you to edit them right here. So if you're in the right drawing, you should have both of these styles. It wants us to change it to this one with offset in this fashion. Hit OK, OK. It changes the style, the tick, how long they are, what they do, possibly what color and size. It could be a lot of things, but it mostly changed how long they were. That's all we're doing. Just kind of showing how we have some power to edit those things. Now another thing, we're going to go to Madison Lane down here. I'm going to hit Control, hold it, left click, and I only have my one label of this alignment station label only selected. I'm going to grab my green or cyan grip and pull it out over here. It's just showing it has a drag state. So every label, Civil 3D label, usually has its default state, which would look a lot like this for this 0 plus 50 at 50 feet. And it has its drag state, which looks like this. And they could look completely different text sizes, styles, but they interact similar. That they're dynamic. Things can be moved around so they can be more beneficial to the plan set's beauty, aesthetics, and text conflicts. Like if I had this here, let me just say this drag state, I move it down here. It's hard to read. It's illegible. It's not neat. So these drag states help us tidy up our plan sets. Here's a grip to add a Vertex Leader. You can make these leaders curve, but that's within the style, little out of scope. These reset things, these little bars. So if I hit that, resets. This moves the leader vertex, which usually you don't need to do, but you could. For whatever reason, that resets it. This resets the entire label. So similar to having options up here, if I select my one label, hit Control, I have reset the whole label group. I can reset just this single label. I could change its pin. You can pin it to be static to one spot and not be moved until you unpin it. You can reverse it, which doesn't apply here. We'll learn that soon. You can flip it, which doesn't really apply when it's in its drag state. So let me hit Control plus left click just to grab this one label to show you what flip means. You can flip them back and forth. You can edit label text, customize. I'll hit Enter here. I'll just put my name there for fun. Hit OK. I can add label text. These GIFs things are funny. Don't worry about these if you see them. If you do see them, go to Annotate. Go to Annotate tab and try to hit Override GIF and try to go to this here. It's a glitch of AutoCAD. This basically shows that the text has been edited. Let me hide those. So that's how you can turn those off if that concerns you. That's about it for 6.44. And at the end of page 120, I was talking about the drag state, how this is pretty important here. It kind of shows how every label in Civil 3D has a drag state. So it has a way that it could look at appearance with the leader or be dragged off to a different location. And it has its initial state, I like to call it. So that is critical. I just covered that. So we're going to move on to 122, creating some station labels. And alignment, as we've said, is a baseline, enabling many other features to be labeled from it and designed from it. And they are referenced to the alignment for any location. Let's say a power pole off to the left or right. It says I'm at this station and this offset to this baseline alignment. Well, these alignment labels we're going to do here soon are station offset labels, are just exactly for things like that. They show a reference, stationing, and offset, and other information you can have. There's other things you can add to them, like northing, easting, your XY position, to these labels, and they move or not move with the alignment. So you have fixed and floating ones. And if you create a station offset label as fixed, they hold their positions and update the station offset values when the alignment's edited. Okay, so they hold their exact position, but they update the station offset. If they're floating, the station offset values stay. They stay static, and they move with the alignment when it's edited. So they have different ways to fixed and floating depending on what your needs are. If you want them to update with the alignment or not as it's designed, you might change what you do. So let's start with 6.5. We'll go to station offset labels. We're going to once again pick the Jordan centerline alignment, and we're going to, at this point, go back to add labels. So I got to pick it first. Add labels here. Give it a second, and we're going to go to, in this case, not the same one we went to. We're going to go to station offset fixed point. So these are the station offset fixed point. So they stay at these points. So if you hover on that, it kind of explains a little bit. So it creates an alignment station offset label at a fixed point. So when I got this, the XY location of that point, if the alignment is if the alignment is edited or moved, the point's XY location stays the same no matter what with respect to the whole drawing. But the labels update to show a new station and offset. So the station offset changes, but the XY position does not, the northing easting. A little confusing. This one is the floating one. So if I have a desired label location where the 3 is there, if the alignment is moved, the label moves with it and maintains the same relative station and offset location. That can be, floating is more dynamic in how it moves. Okay, so in this case, we're going to pick this one, fixed point, and we're going to go to, the picture helps a lot on this one. 122 is a little confusing because you got to follow along where you think it's saying to pick. Really follow this. Do your Jordan Court one here, here, your Madison Lane one here, and here. It doesn't really matter which order. Okay, so keep in mind this picture is really helpful. I'm just going to put one with reference to Jordan Court here. I'll put one here. It's also saying to hold shift and right click in this case to turn on an object snap for one command. This is saying I only want to snap to endpoints just for this one command. And then after the command, it stops doing that. It goes back to your running object snaps. So what that means is that it only does square endpoint snaps. Oop, got to make sure I see my snap of my square. There we go. Hit escape. That's a little different. If you go to your tool tray down here, these are your running object snaps. Critical to AutoCAD and Civil 3D, but AutoCAD Learning 101. These you turn on and off. So when they're turned on, this endpoint snap stays on for every time I want to snap to something with endpoints. Depending on what you want to snap to, the center of a block, a node of a point, a midpoint of any line feature, a center of any arc or circle, you can turn these on and off and they will stay on, running. They'll stay running until you turn them off. If you draw like a polyline, for example, and you only want to snap to circles just for one command, let's say, this is when you would just say, you hold shift, Then, while you're holding shift, right click, you say in this, I only want to do center just for this one command. It's a little bit of a deep AutoCAD command, but it's really, really helpful. Center. And now I hover here, it's only going to center, see? No other snaps and midpoints or endpoints or nodes. That's really helpful. I draw this polyline, but now that's commands over. It's now going to all my running snaps again, which are turned on here. Okay? So that's a little confusing, but object snaps are critical to learn if you want to get good at AutoCAD. So let's do another thing. I say recent command, recent input. This is another way to get back to commands you just did. Right click anywhere in the blank screen, go to recent input, or the very last one, which is right here, which was a polyline, but I don't want to do that again. So it goes back several commands, usually up to 20. I'm going to go to this one. This is the one I know I did that label. I'm going to repeat it. I'm going to say, well, which alignment? This is a little different than the book's doing. Say, this is my base alignment. Let's add a label here. Make sure you got, zoom in, your square snap. That's the symbology for endpoint, okay, on the snap. Hit escape to end that. I got what I wanted. And now, all I'm going to do, the book kind of says just minimally, but you're going to drag by that grip on each of these to a more favorable location in its drag state label identification. So you're going to drag by these cyan squares. This would actually move the physical, the circle one would move its physical XY station offset. You can see how the station offset changes. It's dynamic. It's dynamic to Madison Lane alignment only. Okay. You can also rotate it about. If you hover on it and go like this, you can rotate label and marker like this. It's another advanced command. You can also grip it and it's still rotated. I can say, let's reset the label. I don't like what I did there. I have to rotate it, reset all. So those are a little more advanced. Try that again. So if I click on this, if I hover on this, I can rotate it and rotate just the marker or the label in the marker. So that just rotates the marker. Hover on this, I can rotate both. This grips it out. I can also rotate it once it's in its drag state. Okay, but just the marker. I can also move it. This grip moves it as well. This adds, similar. This resets, so these grips are almost more handy than sometimes using your contextual ribbon. This moves the endpoint of the leader. This moves the landing of the leader, which you usually don't want to do. So lots of grips in there. These ones will grip off and pull over here, so they're more readable, and no text conflicts dragging on top of lines. And like I said, these labels are dynamic to Jordan Court. These labels, and they'll indicate it in this certain style, they're only dynamic, giving information with respect to Madison Lane, okay? So they're all dynamic. So if I click these two, and I'm going to type in the move command or go to home and move, they will move dynamically. The station offsets move dynamically. They're fixed points in the XY, but they'll move dynamically with station offsets. So that's it on 6.4. We're going to move to page 123 in segment labels. Open your segment labels drawing up, and we're going to talk about what are segment labels. So this is where we're going to get into labeling the individual geometries of the alignment. So alignment's made up of generally three things, and there's different ways to label them. It's made up of lines, curves, or arcs. These are two curves in a row back to back in a reverse fashion. One goes this way, one reverses the other way. And spirals. We don't have any spirals in this example, but they're basically dynamic curves that have an ever-changing radius that are used a lot in railroad construction and highway construction to make more progressive, gentle curves so things don't fly off the rails, so to speak. They're a little more advanced mathematically, but they're the third part of alignments and profiles, are mostly alignments. So we're going to learn how to label those geometry segments so we have information of what is the direction and the distance of this line, what is the radius, length, and percentage of the circle of this arc or curve. Percentage of the circle will be referred to as delta. So delta sign in Greek symbol 40 would mean 40 degrees of 360. So that means this would encompass 40 degrees of a 360-degree circle. So that's what makes up an arc. Let's start with the example. We're going to click on this alignment, Jordan Court center line, and we're going to go to add label, or excuse me, I was looking at 6.4, but on continuing on 123 into 124. Now, if we have those labels, it can help us say, hey, is our curve too sharp for our design speed? Are our two curves parallel with each other? Are our lines parallel with each other? Do they have the same bearing? Are things going to be built exact? If we have the model more exact, it's going to be more exact as it gets built in the field. So our most accurate representation of this road should be in its CAD drawing, and it's going to be less so when it gets built. But we want to check those kind of things, and these labels will help us. So when we select, hit escape, I'm going to show you the next step to how to open up the permanent label dialog box. Let's just go to Annotate. Instead of selecting, say, an alignment and going through the label options here, this is another way to do it. Kind of the way I like to do it, really. You can do it, get to the same individual ones here depending on what object you're labeling. We're on surfaces and/or alignments now. We'll soon be on profile views and profiles, and then pipe networks. But I like to just go up to this icon and click it. So the whole static box comes up. You can pin it. That means it stays there, but it has the pin. It minimizes until you hover on it. I like to leave it just unpinned so it stays open. You can go to all your Civil 3D features that are eligible to be labeled. In this case, we're labeling alignments, which is also going to take some line and curve label styles, but we'll get to that in a second. And it wants us to, we're going to add some segment labels. So in this case, we're just going to add a single segment, just one part of our alignment. And we're going to pick a couple different styles here. We're going to say for line label style, we're just going to pick, we'll minimize this so you can better see, there's only two of them right now, bearing over distance. And for curve label style, we're just going to have curve data selected, which we did. This one's okay to leave because we have no spirals. Let's go to add. And we're just going to pick one of the tangents on Madison Lane, for example, just this first one. We added a bearing distance label. So I hit escape to clear that out. I have a label with a distance in feet to the nearest hundredth of a foot. And I have a bearing, a vector or a direction, aka they're all the same thing, bearing, direction, and vector. So it's saying, since this alignment starts here and goes to this direction, up station, up increasing, it is indeed going to the southwest. So if you looked at a quadrant, for example, I'll just draw quick polylines here. We're in this quadrant and we're going this direction. That's to the southwest. Southwest quadrant, southeast, northeast, northwest. This is going in the southwest. That is the accurate direction. Now, these are very common annotations in land surveying and civil engineering. It's the distance is given in the nearest hundredth of a foot, not in fractional inches like construction. And the direction is given in a bearing, which is it gives a cardinal direction, in this case southwest on one of the four quadrants. Sometimes if it's straight 90 degrees north and south, it might just say north, south, east, west, if it's at 0 or 90. But in general, it has one of the four quadrants, and it's in degrees, minutes, and seconds to a fraction of a second. These are the labels you could reverse because there's two different directions of a bearing, and that's on page 125. It's critical to see that. You want this to go in the right direction. So this did it default correct because it is in the correct direction, this alignment. The northeast, this alignment is not moving in the northeast, meaning it starts here and goes this direction because that's the northeast, from Phoenix here to New York here. That would be going in the northeasterly direction. That would be incorrect. So we can also reset the label. I have it selected. It goes to its default state. We can also flip the label, flip them back and forth. We'll do that. We have different grips for these. We have a slider that slides it along the alignment and stays on it. We have the square grip again that pulls it into its drag state. I'm going to turn off my ortho, which keeps it going in a 90-degree angles, which I don't always like. move it over there. So basically we're just showing that we can do all these various things. We can also edit label text like we did similarly. I can say I want to edit the text behind distance. I'm going to put just some custom text here with parentheses. Hit OK, and it adds something just to that one label. Okay, there's various things you can do, and like all Civil 3D styles, they size up and down dynamically depending on the scale of your space, whether it's model space or paper space in a layout view. Okay, let's keep it on 20 for now. We did a bunch of this stuff you're going to do in exercise 6.6, basically. Now, let's go back to this box and change it to multiple segment. And let's go to add again. Let's leave these the same. Actually, this one changed for some reason. Let's make sure this is bearing and distance line, curves or curve data. This is the critical one. Second. I was just messing with my pen for a minute. I don't know why it turned off, but it won't really hold us back at all. So let's continue. So I'm going to hit add, and I'm going to select the alignment, which is Jordan Court. It should add them on every single one now. Selected it. I'll hit escape. And we have all of our labels on Jordan Court now. We have our bearing. It starts here 0 plus a pair and goes this way. Indeed, it is to the southeast from Minnesota to Florida direction, right? And we can pull these grips, move them off. We have on this curve some different stuff, but we have a stationing where the PI is. So where the theoretical PI would be out here. Let me change this just to prove that, or to show it. Actually, I'm not going to worry about that for now, but yeah, we made our segment labels on our curves and our lines, and our curves have certain data where the PC starts, which is here, or the PRC in this case, and where it ends, the PT, it gives it stationing, the delta, the amount, percentage of the circle it takes up, the radius, and oftentimes it'll give the length. So if you go to this given curve data, I have one selected. So these are individual. So if I select one, not all of them are selected in a group. If you haven't noticed, it's just one single alignment curve label. Whereas if I select these geometry points, which are in a label set, they come in as a group. Now I can select one at a time by holding Control, left clicking, but these are always one and independent of each other. And they have similar grips to what we've just learned about. They do similar things. Reset. Pull it back out, add vertices. If we can change them here, easiest, once you have one selected, you can also have multiple selected. If you want to change a slew of them at once, you can change them to a different curve label style. Let's go delta over length and radius. So now we just have a style that shows the length of the curve, the delta angle or percentage of the circle, 46 plus degrees, and the radius. These are common three things that identify curves and segments of an alignment. Okay. We're going to talk about using tags on page 126 now. And tags are basically just a tag label is a special label that assigns a numeric value and simplifies an annotation to, let's say, in this case, a very good example would be C1, S1, L1 for a curve, spiral, tangent, or in this case, a curve, spiral, or a line or tangent. And these labels convert to tables and other things. It's a more concise, condensed way to convey alignment information or many other informations. For example, here is a plan set I've done in the past for a land surveying firm that was very busy in here. So I had to display the curve data, the line data, the bearing distances, and a very tight area here of many different little easements and roads and monuments we set to establish this property on this land surveying document. And if these would have been the length of this, For example, all this information, one in itself contained in the label, you would have never fit all that text in here. Here's a full size one. If you would have had this for this kind of annotation for all these lines, the ones with the L's, you would have never fit this all, or at least it would have been very messy and very hard to read, interpret. So these tags, what we're going to learn about in 6.7, help us clean drawings up, make them concise, which they play right into 6.8, learning how to take these tags and populate really quickly tables of these segments, whether it be curves or lines. You can combine them in a table in the same table. A lot of times they're very neat to put in different tables because curves have different variables that make them up than lines. That's why I separated them like this. This is the same data, but condensed in a tag, which signals where to go into a table to see that set information. That's a very critical thing to get better at drafting and to lay out civil engineering and land surveying plans. And we're going to learn about those right now. If we go to the tag labels, drawing, we're going to go to the Jordan chord alignment, and let's select it once again, like we've been doing all chapter. And we're going to go back to this method again, click Add Labels. In this case, we're going to go to Add Alignment Labels. This will also bring us to this permanent location here, which I'll hit X. You can also get to it by just not clicking any alignment. Going to the Annotate tab, just clicking this tag button. If you're going to learn anything in Civil 3D to label, learn this, how to get to here, and this will take you most of the rest of the way. You just got to go to the right entity, alignment. In this case, we're going to do some different stuff here. We're going to say multiple segment in this case. So it will label multiple things at once, as we learned in the last section. We're going to go to circle tag for both. So make sure it should be on. That circle tag is for line label style, and circle tag is also on for curve label style. My tag annotations are already ready to go. The style that makes them look like they do. So you'll see that in a second. We'll hit Add, and I'm going to select my Jordan chord alignment. Another thing you'll quickly realize, if you hover on objects like an alignment or a surface, just hover on it and don't touch anything, you'll see a lot of data about it. You'll see what the alignment's named, what it's associated with, like on a surface. You see those 4 things under it, which alignments are interconnected to it. You can see what stationing and offset you are with respect to the Jordan chord offset alignments on both sides, where they are, what other things. So this is with any Civil 3D object you hover on, it has some stuff that will come up to help you identify, and it's a heads up prompt that helps you better navigate through Civil 3D rather than having to go through your tool space and follow along through here. So that's a good thing. Going back, select the alignment. It adds these labels the way we want it here. So I have L34. So they started on weird numbers. That's a problem with Civil 3D. It says it does it well, but it's a pain in the butt that it always is doing this. A lot of times you wait till the end to label them sequentially, so you don't have to keep redoing it. So it labeled each segment. And these segments also have grips like this that we've already learned about. You can drag them off. And the drag state looks different, as you notice, than the initial default state. So if I get this one just selected, if I hold Control, you don't need to hold Control for these. They're all independent, like the last station offset labels. You could flip both of these. This drag state doesn't flip. So we have our labels. Now we're going to renumber them. So let's click the Jordan alignment again to better get to this. We're going to, by clicking the alignment, you get this contextual prompt and renumber tags. This is probably the best way to get to it. Renumber tags. It says select a label to renumber. Well, we don't want to just do one. We want to go systematically from start to finish through this whole alignment and renumber all of them. So you can hit S for settings like it says in exercise number 7 or step number 7. Or you can just click, if you see something gray in the command prompt here, that means you can click it to go to the next thing. And it took us to the tag settings. It wants us to say, let's start with 1, and let's start with 1. And let's hit OK. Now this is the more confusing part and weird that it wouldn't renumber them automatically. We have to do them one at a time. We have to click them one at a time. So I'm ready to click. Left click this one, we keep going down, so on and so forth through the alignment. This is a clunky command in my opinion. It'd be nice if it did them automatically, but it still works. So this is something I would wait till the end to do, until your alignment's fully designed. So now they're all in sequential order. So that's the end of 6.7. We're going to go into 6.8 to create a table from these tags. So open your create table drawing, and a table can essentially contain of these segments, at least in this case. You can create dynamic tables for many things in Civil 3D. Figures, parcels, alignments, pipes, various things. We're staying mostly on these alignment ones. So you can add just for lines, just for curves or spirals. If you add for segments, which we're about to do, it does for all three of them. That's essentially what that is. So we'll go into page 128, and we're going to start creating them. And the tables are dynamic. So when your alignment changes, the labels change, the tables change, they all change together. So that's part of the dynamicness. You can choose them to be static if you want, but generally I make them dynamic for obvious reasons that I want them to update when I want them to update. So we're going to create a table for these tags. I'm going to click this Jordan alignment, and I'm going to add table, and I'm going to go to add segments through the contextual ribbon. And there's many ways you can add tables in 3 different ways. You can add the entire alignment, this entire alignment, Jordan Court center line. You pick it. You can just say, no, I want to only add a certain style. Let's say you make a unique style that you could isolate and segregate here and quickly just apply a table for all those segregated ones. That's one way, or the second way, I should say. The third way is you can pick individual 1 or 2 or 3 of them with this icon. If you pick, it'll let you just pick 1, 2, and they populate. You don't have to hit control. I'll hit OK. It found 2 of them, and I can make a table of just those 2. I'll hit escape. Let's redo this again. I have my alignment selected. Add tables, add segments. We can just do this entire road, Jordan Court, or the book has us go to select label style, and we can say alignment curve, curve data, or circle tag. We want to do the ones with the circle tags in the alignment. So you'd have to select these 2 to get them all. You can also change the amount of rows. Let's say you have hundreds of them. You might need to bump this up to like 100. And I generally leave most of these alone, but they better help you. You can also pick the layer, format the table. We'll hit OK. And here's our initial table. Boom, done. So all these segments, it gives their information, the lines and the curves, and a certain type of formatting. So you go into this table, there's a lot of styles you can change. You can add and remove items if you select it. Your contextual table stuff comes up. You can turn it static. You can update it, kick it in the butt and say you need to update. You can go to its properties and change various things, a few things, but most of the changes, if you really want to make a custom one, is in edit table style. You got to go to the data properties here, and you can really dig into what you populate in your style with the variables. But that's a little beyond the scope of this class, but it is something you do a lot in industry to get a table to show exactly what you want and how you want it and what annotation, what significant digits. That's the end of chapter 6. We'll move on to chapter 7 shortly.